Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Brockton City Council Ordinance meeting for Thursday, January 28th, 2021 via Zoom. This meeting is being held in accordance with Governor Charlie Baker's signed open meeting law order dated March 12th, 2020, which relieves a public body from the requirement of Section 20 of Chapter 30A that it conduct its meetings in a public place that is open and physically accessible to the public, provided that the public body makes provisions to ensure public access to the deliberations of the public body for interested members of the public through adequate alternative means following COVID-19 procedures. Personally, I want to apologize that there was a mix-up on posting for Tuesday night. Thank you for everybody for changing their schedules so quickly because it is important that the meetings are posted correctly, and that was not. That was my fault, and I apologize. First item on the agenda, first, I guess we have with us the 5 members of the committee: Councilor Cruz, I'm the chairman; Councilor Thompson; Councilor Nicastro; Councilor Monahan; and Councilor Rodrigues. We're also joined by Councilor Razak at this point. I think there'll be other councilors coming on. First item agenda is an ordinance amending Part 2 of the revised ordinances, Chapter 21, taxi cabs, buses, etc., be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Brockton, Section 21-11A shall be amended by striking the word shall and inserting in its place may, so that the revised ordinance reads, all taxi cabs in the city may displace an identity light on top of the taxi cab. Further, Section 21-15 shall be amended by striking the words 1/4 and inserting in its place 1/8, so that the revised ordinance reads, effective on April 1st, 2009, not less than 1/8 of a licensee's vehicle to which a license applies shall be equipped with safety shields. Section 21-32, Section 3B shall be deleted in its entirety. This was at our last ordinance meeting and has been sent back to this month. Councilor Nicastro, you file this. Do you have anything to say? We had some discussion at the last meeting.
Well, I think we continued it so that our taxi cab owner, Mr. Parker, and Mr. Karp could speak with Lieutenant Perez and see if there was some compromise they could make over, I think it was the rooftop lights.
Lieutenant Perez, did you want to weigh in on this?
Yes, good evening. We went out, we had one of our officers go out and take a look at the reflective shield, reflective tape that they wanted to put on instead of the light. The department doesn't have a problem with it, and we don't have a problem with the 1/8 of the shield.
Councilors, any comments? Councilor Thompson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Lieutenant Perez, I do appreciate you working with the taxi company and, seeing if we can allow some relief for this taxi company while also maintaining public safety. So the fact that I believe we can do both is, it's good to know. So if anybody else wanted to make a comment, please go ahead. If not, I'd be willing to make a motion on the matter.
Yes, I just want to say, I want to echo your words, Councilor Thompson. Thank you, Lieutenant Perez, and thank the Brockton Police Department for this compromise.
Thank you.
I think we should call it a roof sign instead of a roof light.
Well, actually, if we're going to go to the reflective tape, we probably want to put some verbiage in the in there. Councilor Nicastro, did you want to do that, or?
Let's see. May display. It said may display an identity light on top of the taxi cab. So what would it be instead? Reflective tape?
Well, it'll be a roof. If I may speak, it would be a roof sign with the reflective tape that shows it's the yellow cab. So rather than call it an identity light, let's call it a roof sign or an identity sign.
Attorney Resnick, how about if we added after the identity light on top of the taxi cab or reflective roof sign.
Yep, I have that. So I could draft up that amendment to reflect that motion if that motion is so made.
Okay.
Councilors, does that seem like that would satisfy it?
Mr. Chairman, just if we have the word may in there, so if we're going to require it, we'd also want to strike may and add shall in its place.
You got that, Attorney Resnick? So it's saying they shall put a sign or an electric sign or a reflective sign.
Yep, so it actually has the shall in the original document. When you see the amendment that will be drafted up, it'll just have or reflective tape.
But I think I agree with Councilor Thompson if we don't change what's proposed tonight.
That's right.
We
No, it
need to
has
take
to
it out
be.
of what's proposed tonight.
But so the proposal in front of you requests that you strike the word shall. So your motion tonight can just be to amend that aspect of it. So then the word shall stays in the ordinance.
So it remains, yes.
Yep.
All right, so we comfortable on that? Somebody want to make a motion?
I will make a motion to approve it as amended, as we just discussed. Leaving the word shall and inserting after identity light or reflective roof sign.
I second.
Motion made and seconded on the amendment. Attorney Resnick, can you call the roll? This is on the changes for tonight.
Well,
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, sorry if I may. Would we do these separately, or there's also the issue of the shield? Would we want to address that issue concurrently, or do we take them one at a time?
Actually, they're proposed as one change for tonight. So
That's right.
first we'll vote on the amendment to change what's in front of us tonight. And then we'll take the whole change as one.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
Cruz,
Yes.
Monahan,
Yes.
Nicastro,
Yes.
Rodrigues,
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
It's 5 in the affirmative.
Thank you.
Now I'll take a motion to recommend the entire change.
And make a motion to recommend the amended
Changes.
ordinance.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to change the ordinance as amended.
Mr. Chairman, on the amendment.
Councilor Rodrigues.
Now, what's the verbiage as far as the shield is concerned?
So the shields are going to be changed from 1/4 to 1/8.
Mr. I mentioned this last time that we had this discussion. I feel very uncomfortable about changing this particular thing as far as, the public is concerned. I can understand the changes with the lighting and some of these other things, but when you're talking about one quarter of 10 to 12 cabs, you're talking about a couple cabs.
Correct.
And I think to go all the way down to 1/8, you're talking about one cab in the whole city with a shield in it. I think I feel more comfortable leaving it at 1/4 than going down to 1/8. So for that reason, if we as a committee insist on changing it to 1 and 8, I'm going to vote against it.
Okay, I'll tell you what, Councilor Castro, you want to take your motion out and let's just move on the first one first. Would you be willing to take your motion back?
I'll withdraw my motion to recommend the ordinance as changed.
So why don't we do a motion to act on section 21-11A, which is the signs.
Okay, motion to recommend approving or recommend favorably section 21-11A as amended.
Second.
Okay, so now we're going to vote on just section 21-11A, and then we'll have a discussion on the shields. Attorney Resnick, can you call a roll? So councilors, this is just on the the roof signs.
Cruz,
Yes.
Monahan,
Yes.
Castro,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
5 in the affirmative. That will be reported, that section as favorable as amended.
Now we want to talk about the shields. Councilor Rodriguez, I think, just made his feelings clear. What, do you want no changes, Councilor, or what?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to leave it as 1 in 4, and which in reality, when you look at it, 1 in 4 of a company that actually has 10 to 12 cabs, you're looking at 3 cabs. I think it's more than reasonable to at least to say that we actually have 3 cabs in the city that have a protective shield, thus giving the individuals that are going to call those cabs an opportunity to have a cab that actually has a shield. And I think it also affords the drivers who feel that they don't want to drive with the shield. There's plenty of cars that they can actually use without the shield. So as far as I'm concerned, and remembering the issues of what took place several years ago with the safety both of drivers and the people within the cabs, I would feel more comfortable leaving it as is.
Councilors, any questions?
I'd like to ask Mr. Parker a question.
Go right
Okay,
ahead.
Mr. Parker, how many cabs do you have on the road?
Since we last talked, I took 4 off the road. No business, no drivers.
So, yeah, I'm sorry. So how many have you got on the road now?
10.
10?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So 1/4 is 2 and change,
Yeah.
and 1/8 would be 1. Would that be
Well,
onerous?
if I had 2, it would be 2. Once you get over 8, you'd turn into another one,
Right.
correct?
Would that be onerous for you to have 2 cabs with shields?
Excuse me?
Would that be very difficult for you to have 2 cabs with shields on the road?
No, 2 would be, would be fine.
Okay,
And if I get up, over 16, then I need another one.
okay. Lieutenant Perez,
Yes,
didn't you say that the police department was okay with reducing the number from 1/4 to 1/8?
we're fine if you want to reduce it or keep it as 1/4. That's really for the protection of the driver based on what we've talked about in the last meeting. But it's really for the protection of the driver. So if you want to reduce it to keep it to the 1/4 or reduce it to the 1/8, we're talking about 1 shield.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Chair, I'm okay with it going forward the way it is.
You mean the offered amendment or leaving it as is?
I would leave it as is as the 1/8.
Okay, so
You mean the
currently
order?
it's 1/4.
It's a difference of 1 or 2. I mean,
Well, when he gets up to, if business was good enough and he get up to full, it would be a matter of 4 or 2.
right, 4 or 2, that's right.
So if that's a motion, I would second it.
So the motion is made and seconded to recommend favorably the changes proposed, correct?
As the 4th, yes.
Can I just check, make a recommendation for the format of the motion?
Mhm.
So I would just have you, just delete or strike, have the motion be to strike the changes to section 21-15. And
No, her motion is that she wants to move forward with the changes.
With the 1/8.
oh, okay, so then never mind.
So the motion is to recommend favorably. There is a motion on the floor with a second. Would you please call the roll?
Cruz,
No.
Monahan,
No.
Nicastro,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
No.
Thompson.
Yes.
All right,
The motion fails 2 to 3. So this will be recommended back to the full council with item
Under-
21-11A changed, and item 21-15 will stay the same.
Okay,
With all due respect, 10 years ago, you couldn't even smoke a cigarette. Now they sell marijuana. I mean, if that isn't public safety, I don't know what is.
Thank you, Mr. Parker. The vote's been taken. Thank you.
Okay.
Item number 2. Ordinance, be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Brockton as follows. That the City Council adopt the following amendment to the ordinance establishing licensing and regulation for adult use marijuana establishments. Section 1.004 1H is amended by inserting the following sentence to the end of the section. This section limiting the number of recreational retail marijuana licenses shall not apply to an RMD that was provisionally licensed not later than July 1st, 2017. Be it further ordained by the City Council of the City of Brockton as follows. That the language intentionally omitted in section 1.005 be stricken and the following language be inserted in its place, so that the following language replaces section 1.005 in its entirety. Upon such time as the City Council has granted all available recreational retail marijuana licenses pursuant to subsection 1.004 1H, the clerk of the City Council shall no longer accept any new applications for a recreational retail marijuana license. Notice shall be given in writing to any applicant with a pending application, notifying the applicant that there are no available recreational retail marijuana licenses. If any recreational retail marijuana licenses become available in the City of Brockton, the city clerk shall post notice of the same on the city website and by posting notice of the same in City Hall. Councilors, item number 3 essentially deals with the same thing in just a different way. Basically, I'd like to, for our conversations, when I file this, I just put the 2 original medical marijuana licenses to the side so that we'd be changing to 8 new and the 2 existing possible. Now, Councilor Rodrigues has filed, I'm sorry, it's not number 3, it's number 4. I think we need to basically talk about them together because we're trying to get the same thing done. It's just a matter of how we get there. Is there any objection to that?
no,
No.
No objection.
No objection.
So I guess I would say, I think what's the point of the 2 ordinances is essentially the same. Councilor Rodrigues, you basically agree with me?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, but I do like some of the wordage that you have on your on the amendment that you proposed in terms of notification of the clerk and all those other steps that you put in there, because that's one of the issues that we've had for quite some time. So I want to figure out a way to incorporate both the ones, and I can see that we can probably merge the two ordinance where instead of talking about what you have, we can kind of add what I have in the areas of the numbers, but leave your ordinance amendment, because I kind of like the words behind it in terms of at least notification upon the once the licenses have been exhausted. So
basically, if I'm correct, and you correct me if I'm wrong, basically what you filed gives us, and just so the public knows, that anybody watching this and reading the minutes later, Councilor Rodrigues and Councilor Monahan and myself were on the original ordinance committee that put this together a few years ago. The numbers we used, that number 8 came from, at the time, what the state was telling us was the roof, not the floor, of how many licenses we could give out.
Correct.
That's how we arrived at that. So it was not an arbitrary number that we came up with. It was a number that the state was pushing for. By the time they finalized their legislation, or since, and Attorney Resnick, you can correct me if I'm wrong, they changed that number. They changed the idea of what the ceiling can be, correct?
Yeah, they clarified it a little bit more for municipalities by way of like a subsequent guidance.
And Councilor Rodrigues, if I'm correct, what you filed basically matches how many host agreements we have out there, correct?
That That is correct, Mr. Chairman. Mayor Carpenter had given out 10 host agreements back in the days, of which I guess 9 are still in effect, and 1 had dropped out. But I guess I was just told that that 10th might have come through again. And I, as mayor, gave up 4 additional ones to include some of the minority applicants that we have, and therefore, since there was not a great deal of clarification within the applicants in terms of the number and all the other issues that existed, I felt that it probably would make sense for us as a city to license the 10 plus the 4, and then basically hold those numbers as we move forward, because I think it kind of takes away from a lot of the issues that we faced in the last couple of weeks in terms of who's been given a host agreement, versus who's not been given a host agreement. But I think it kind of solves what we're trying to do on both sides of the fence.
I agree, and I think
So I was actually going to make an amendment to my own amendment to go from 13 to 14, since I was told that the 10 members of the 10 folks that actually had been given the host agreements are all still in line. So I would kind of, once we talk about that, instead of 13, I'd like to make it 14.
Councilors, any comments, any thoughts?
Yeah.
Councilor Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Mr. Chairman, trying to implement our city's marijuana ordinance has been difficult, to say the least. In my opinion, the City Council was unable to treat all applicants fairly under the current ordinance. I think the City Council was put in the position to make a legal determination in issuing its last marijuana license. We're requiring to adjudicate the meaning of engaged under Section 2724(3), to adjudicate whether RMDs apply under the licensure caps. And it was my opinion that these issues should have been decided by a court and not the City Council. But we also have the ability to amend the ordinance, and I'm glad that's the decision that this committee is making. Simply put, as Councilor Rodrigues stated, we have more home community agreements than we have marijuana licenses. And I believe the only fair way to treat all HCA holders is to give them a chance to receive a marijuana license. So my first question was, as Councilor Rodrigues asked, was how many current HCAs are active out there? And if the number is 14, I agree with Councilor Rodrigues. We should increase the license cap to 14. My questions, my additional questions is, would there be any requirements to change the zoning ordinance? Right now we have it 25% C3, 75%, 75% C2. I did the math before on 13, and that'd be 10 in a C2 and 3 in a C3. I'm imagining that's going to change a little bit, making it, 4 in a C3 and 10 in a C2. If that is the math, or whatever the math is that something that this committee wants to keep in effect, or do we want to make any changes to that zoning ordinance?
There's a good question we may need to. Now, first of all, part of the taking the 2, we may want to still do this as a 12 and 2 proposal. The two original medical marijuana licenses, which, and just so you know, and not to try to defend Councilor Monahan or Rodrigues or myself, but when we were creating this original ordinance, the state was still in a state of flux on their laws. They were developing them, but they've been very slow, the CCC, to have given us real guidance on this. And we were operating a little blindly while we were trying to get it done in a timely fashion. First of all, we couldn't change that tonight because that's a zoning issue, and we'd have to advertise this meeting for 10 days. But I do think I agree with you that without knowing where those host agreements are, that we need to look at that, and we may have to we may have to make a change on that. The other
Oh.
thing, but the two medical marijuanas are in an overlay district that is totally separate. Attorney Resnick, do you agree with me?
I do, yeah, and I just, like the 12 and 2, I think you can do. But if you do it the way that you're doing now, that doesn't change the zoning laws application to them.
Correct.
That I have no disagreement, and I've always said that they have certain rules within our zoning ones that don't apply to them because they were pre-existing before you passed your zoning ordinances. So
Okay, so-
you could do it as a 12 and 2 and write the language that was in Councilor Cruz's proposal that the RMDs registered before July 1st, 2017 are not subject to the cap.
Okay, so I just doing making the 12 and 2. Then I guess the math says it would be 3 in the C3 and the remaining in the C2. So that would bring me to my next question. If we kept it 3 in the C2 or the 2575 as currently stated, would we have to make any changes to the 500-foot facility buffer zone? Can we get 3 in that downtown area without there being a violation of that 500-foot buffer?
That's a good question. Without looking at,
But,
I
Mr.
personally
Chairman,
haven't looked at all the host agreements and their proposed addresses. So I couldn't say whether we need to or not. I think we may need to address that in the meantime. But we can't do it tonight because we can't change the zoning tonight in this. We would have to have a separate meeting to change the zoning. We may need to, after we change this and open up these to what it sounds to me like the will of the council and the will of this committee is to change it to 14 or 12 and 2. We may then need to look at the proposed or not change it. I mean, somebody who has been late to the party may have to look at a different address. I mean, we don't know that, but if we can't make that work, but that would have to be in a different meeting because it's a zoning issue. We'd have to have a separate meeting with a public hearing and be advertised for 10 days before we had an ordinance meeting on that.
Okay.
I'm happy to get to that next and get a
Excuse me?
map. I'm happy to plot out where the 14 are and explain to you what needs to be done. And then we need to submit a zoning amendment. If that's what, one of the councilors wants to support that, I can draft that up. But it would be the only way you could do it would be through a new ordinance changing because it's a completely separate ordinance.
Okay.
Oh, that's right. The zoning is not even in this marijuana.
Correct.
That's part of the zoning ordinance, correct.
I'd like to say something.
Councilor Castro.
So you're essentially proposing between these two ordinances, or in the numbers you're talking about this evening, that we're going to go from 8 retail endeavors to 14, which is an increase of 6. So you're almost doubling the number, our original number. I'm concerned about the companies that we've already issued licenses to. I'm concerned that we're suddenly diluting, their effect on the market, and that we'll somehow harm them by doing this. We only have one store that's open selling retail, and that's in the medical marijuana district right now. Here we are all these months later since approving those licenses. We still have no idea of the impact of the licenses we've already approved and their resulting businesses. I'm really concerned about adding all these additional businesses at this time when there's so much that's unknown. I mean, it seems like only the Cannabis Commission can make these sweeping, changes without everybody having time to react.
Well, and I will say, I don't disagree with you. I don't like the idea of, however, one of the problems that came about is when we put this together, we never said first come, first serve. And that's one of the problems we're running into, is that we were put in a bad position, and that the state basically said, we put our our local ordinances together based pretty closely on the state ordinance, which doesn't talk about first come, first serve, but it does talk about giving the hearings first come, first serve. And unfortunately, we were essentially told if they had their provisional licenses from the state, you'd have to have an awful good reason to say no to their license application. So it, in effect, in the reality, became first come, first serve. And that's kind of what we're running into now, is people who were going at the same time, who started the process at the same time, but didn't get in as quickly. And again, it is an issue. I agree. We don't know how it's going to dilute this, and we don't even know if all of these are going to open. But at this point, I believe we were put in a bad position because of the fact that the CCC had not finished all of their work and expected us to finish our ordinances at the same time. Again, the number, I think the council would have put more like 12 or so if we weren't told at the time that 8 was the maximum based on what they were putting into the law at the time. Then they didn't put it that way. They changed that after we had finished our ordinance. It is an issue. I agree completely, but I don't know any other way out of this at this point.
Well, the other thing is that it puts greater pressure on us to approve everyone who comes in the door applying for a license. And not every applicant is going to be qualified to get a license. And yet, there's the license sitting there, and so there's great pressure on us not to disapprove it, even though they don't meet the criteria.
Councilor Rodrigues.
Mr. Chairman, just to address what Councilor Castro was saying, what we are agreeing with the number 14, these are 14 individuals that have valid host agreements with the city. So they've gone through if they have gone through the process in terms of planning, zoning, and site review and all the other things, they have a valid host agreement with the city. Therefore, just like what we did with the other 6 or 7 applicants that we did, because they had a valid host agreement and they had gone through the CCC and some of these other things that they had gone through, we gave them a license. Therefore, these other numbers that we are increasing these numbers by, these are not brand new customers. These are customers or clients that we have in the queue, because they're on standby waiting for these licenses to come to fruition, because we have given them valid host agreements. So they're not just, these applications are not open for whoever wants to show up and apply for. These individuals have host agreements. Carpenter had given out 10 and I gave up 4 to balance things out. So that's where the 14 came from. And people knew that from the get-go, that we were going to open that stuff up and give out the rest of, give up some minority applicants an opportunity to actually apply for these licenses as well. As far as the market, honestly, we got to do the right thing for the city and not necessarily sit here and figure out who's doing well, who's not doing well. Councilor Cruz and I were talking about that there's a very good chance that the 14 license holders that we currently have, maybe half of them are not even going to open or be able to open because they're not going to meet the demands that they have in order to open up as a shop. But I think it serves us right to basically, one, correct some injustices that took place a couple years ago, and 2, to satisfy the demands that we have in place. I also wanted to say that I believe we should keep it as 14, not say 12 of one and 2 of the other, because we know that we've had some issues with, who has, they use the word grandfathered, who are protected, who are not protected. And I think it opens up another can of worms. So I think we ought to leave it as 14 licenses, and that's the end of it, and hope that the market will bear itself, and we'll go from that and actually kind of put this issue to rest, because frankly, it's becoming an issue that's dragging this entire council down. How many meetings have we had discussing this issue where we're not getting anything done because it's, some councils are afraid of losing their licenses, people are getting afraid of being sued, and so all these other discussions that actually is taking place within the council, preventing us from doing what we need to do to move this thing forward. And I think we do it as 14, and these individuals have a valid host agreement. And when we move on in hopes that, that we can put this issue to rest.
Mr. Chairman, if I may
Coun-
also add
Councilor Thompson.
another comment. Thank you. I do understand Councilor Nicastro's point about increasing the number and therefore maybe diluting the demand for each individual shop. But I think we should leave that up to the market to decide who's running the best shop, and we should not tell somebody who has a home community agreement that has spent tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars in pursuit of this license that their efforts were in vain because they weren't as fast as the other applicants. So I truly believe this is the only fair way to move forward, and then we'll allow the market to decide, who stays in business and who doesn't. I would like to bring up one additional issue, and I don't know if this is the forum for it, but I think another problem that the council has run into is the procedure on who comes before us for a decision on their license. It looks like there may be a difference between what the statute says and what the law department's requirements are. Now, we've had some that had provisional licenses, others that didn't. We've had some that gone through all the boards and one that didn't. And so I don't know if this is the proper forum to really take a closer look to clarify what are the requirements to come before the city to make a decision on their application, and so that we have a uniform process and we're not giving exceptions to one group over another group, because that's really where we fall into legal trouble. There can be disagreements as to what the ordinance says, but if we set out a process and then us as a council do not follow that process, that's really where we can get into some trouble. So I think that's an issue that either we should talk about as a city council, or maybe as an ordinance committee, or maybe get the law department involved. But I really think we need to have one standard to come before the council with an application, and no exceptions, no exceptions, because I think we need to be fair with all applicants. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councilor, I think you're right. And I believe, and I'm going to ask Attorney Resnick to look into this, I believe we did put that in the ordinance. I don't have the whole ordinance in front of me right now,
Yeah.
but I believe we did put in what items they had to have before they could come to us. Is that correct?
Yeah, we did.
Comment. So there's part of the ordinance that says like what needs to be in the packet that you submit. And then just to address Councilor Thompson's thing about the whole provisional license and not having the provisional license, part of that issue was that when this ordinance was drafted, it was not clear at the time whether or not the CCC would give a provisional license without approval of the city license. So we were not sure at the time whether or not it would go city approval, then provisional license, or you could do provisional license, then city license. And it was learned through, I believe, In Good Health's application that they could start the city process before obtaining a provisional license. There is a packet like that the applicants can get, and there's a checklist. And I think that might create a little bit of confusion, because some of the checklist items include things like a provisional license, include things like site plan and all of that. But when I was asked to comment on whether or not an applicant needs the provisional license, I just said that it's not required according to the ordinance. But if you look at the grounds for denying a license, that could be the sole basis that the city council could deny the license. So it is in there. I just, maybe we should check to make sure that it mirrors well with the checklist that the applicants receive from the clerk's office.
and then maybe have some control over the agenda of not allowing, any applicant who has not met whatever requirements that we all agree upon, have one standard and not, and hold fast to that one standard. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, the
Thank you.
ordinance dictates that was to the clerk's office to do. But that can certainly be put more in writing, rather than leaving that up to that office.
Why don't we can move forward on that, not tonight, not as part of, it is in the ordinance and we need to enforce that. But I think we're gonna need to give some help to the clerk's office on what we're expecting on that. And how to check those applications and make sure that all that information is in there. And we need to basically make it, maybe provisional acceptance of an application or whatever, so that it doesn't come to us until all those items are taken care of. I'm not sure, have all the board members, committee members spoken who would like to right now? Could I do, Councilor Azak would like to speak. Councilor Azak?
Thank you. Good evening, Ordinance Committee. Shirley Azak, Ward 7 City Councilor. So you have pretty much addressed a few of my concerns. I know Councilor Nicastro and Councilor Rodrigues brought up some of my questions. One of my main concerns is, say this passes and you vote favorably to send it back to the full council this evening. And Councilor Rodrigues, you mentioned the number 14. Is there any way that we can state or make sure that these 14, if the numbers increase to 14, that this protects the existing applicants that already hold host community agreements? And so we don't find ourselves with, now all of a sudden we've increased it to 14 and we have more people coming in to apply and go through the process. Can we word it so it's specific to the existing, applicants that hold the host community agreements as of now?
Valid question, and I think we need to not just go on the hope that the mayors don't give out any more host community agreements, but that we can put in somewhere that a date that they've had host agreements by, perhaps.
Okay, and so that's one of my main concerns. I want to make sure this, what we're doing is actually protecting the applicants that we want to protect now, that are actually going through the process, that have invested thousands and thousands of dollars through the process, whether it's through the coming before the city or with the state. So that's, I'd like to see that done. The other question I have is, and this is possibly, I don't know if Shannon, you can answer this. So we increase this number to say 14, and say out of the 14, 7, I'll just say 7 are not successful, they fail. Can they take, in the city of Brockton, can they take that license and go outside of Brockton, like go to Rockland? Can they go somewhere else with the licenses that we're giving out?
No, the licenses does not transfer from municipality to municipality. It's specific to Brockton. And I believe there is language within the host community agreement that actually creates a penalty if they cease their operations within 1 year.
Okay.
And the host community agreements are very specific as to transferability of the licenses, and transferability still gets reviewed, I believe, by the License Commission. But yeah, that's if they're not able to stay in business, it doesn't carry over.
So what happens to those licenses? Are they given back like to the, so does our number come back? So then we have available licenses, or is that what
Yes.
happens?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. I think that's it. Like I said, some of the councilors already asked some of the questions, some of my concerns. So I just want to make sure that whatever, changes we're making, that we're making, that they're put in writing, and that we're protecting the applicants, because we're also protecting the city of Brockton, as the goal of this also is for the city to profit. And, I don't want to set businesses up to fail. So, so we're helping them and we're helping ourselves as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. If there's no more discussion, I'd like to, Councilor Nicastro.
Thank you. A question for Shannon. So following up on what Councilor Azak just brought up. So how long does a company that has an approved license have to open their business before the license is revoked or returns back to, lapses and comes back to us?
Attorney Bridges may know because it's in the host community agreement. I think it says 6 months, but that's a guess.
Attorney Bridges,
Mr.
could you help
Chair.
us out here?
Yes, absolutely. Hi, everyone. Councilor Nicastro, so originally in the first issuance of host community agreements, there was a provision that required a performance bond to be obtained by the applicant, and that the applicant to exercise action on the host community agreement. In other words, application to the CCC for state licensure and local approval for site plan review and special permit. And if the applicant did not do that within a year and or opened its business within a year while closing its doors within that same year, then the city had an opportunity to call on the performance bond. Initially, the licenses were for one, or the host community agreements were for 1 year to identify what the landscape would look like and to see if the folks who were issued HCAs would actually utilize them. That appears to be the case. And so HCAs that have been renewed since the council took up the licensure issues last summer no longer include the performance bond piece. And the HCA term is 3 years instead of 1 year. So based upon these folks coming in front of the city council and wanting a city license, it didn't appear necessary to require a performance bond any further because of their substantial investment in time and resources in getting to where they got. And it also seemed appropriate to extend the HCA for 3 years. That does not negate or derogate from the requirement that the applicant receive an annual renewal from the License Commission for their city license. So I think that really answers where you all are going on this issue. And while we haven't really got to that stage yet, except within good health, the city attempted to mirror the marijuana renewal licensure process like that for alcohol. So we require an application packet, some compliance that you're paying your bills and your HCA fees, and then a renewal issue after a hearing in front of the License Commission.
Okay.
And the grounds for denial or renewal are outlined in the ordinance.
Okay. Thank you.
All set, Councilor?
Yes, thank you, Attorney
Thank you.
Bridges.
So just one question on that, Attorney Bridges. When does the clock start on that?
On what, sir?
On that 3 years?
The term is from the date of execution of the agreement, so they all have different dates.
Okay, but that's when the clock starts, when the host
Yes,
agreement was signed.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. What I'd like to ask is if Attorney Resnick can help us. What I'd like to do is take my ordinance and put the right verbiage in so that I'm willing to go take out the 2 and 12, and make it 14. So I do want to keep the last part in about the clerk shall no longer accept applications if there are none available.
So just to be clear, it would be my recommendation to amend yours because yours identifies a change to that intentionally omitted sections. So in order to keep that language, we've at least provided notice that we're changing that section.
Okay, so what I'm asking you is what's the best verbiage and where do we put it?
So to strike out what you have written and to insert in its place exactly what Councilor Rodrigues wrote, but with the number 14.
Yeah.
So we're not acting on that yet. We'll need to.
Can I make a motion that we take them collectively?
or should we table mine, postpone mine and move on to number 4?
No, so you can actually,
Mm.
Councilor Cruz, you can actually amend yours to reflect the language change. You could make the motion right now to strike the language change relating to the license cap, insert in its place. You could read off the language that Councilor Rodrigues has proposed.
Mhm.
But if you want the 14, you would say 14. Then you could vote on those amendments. And if the council approves, you can vote to approve yours. And then you can table Councilor Rodrigues.
Correct. I like that.
We'll rephrase it and say ours anyways, but
That's fine.
And you could also, I mean, the councilors are always allowed to add a sponsor. So if Councilor Rodrigues wanted to join in on your
Absolutely. Yeah.
sponsorship for the city council, I can have that reflected when I send the amendment to the clerk's office.
Okay. That works.
so actually being the chairman, I wouldn't make the motion if you wanted. Councilor Rodrigues, if you want to make the motion, just Attorney Resnick, you want to read it and he can say so moved, what you think we should be doing?
Yep. Yep. Okay.
So it'll be a motion to amend the order,
Yep.
the
So,
ordinance.
yep. So you're going to make the motion, but this is with regards to item 4. You're gonna make a motion to.
Wait a minute,
strike-
so we're not on, that's my question. We're not on,
You took
well,
them
we can-
you took them collectively. You took 2
no, we
and
never
4
took a vote. We never took a vote to.
Vote.
Do you want
We'll
to do
take a
that?
motion. So somebody make a motion to take items 2 and 4 together.
So moved.
So,
Second.
second,
Motion made and seconded to act on items number 2 and number 4 collectively. Attorney Resnick, can you call a roll?
Yep. Cruz,
Yes.
Monahan,
Yes.
McCastro,
yes.
Rodrigues,
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Okay. And so then if,
All right, now if you can read what you think the motion should be.
yep, so the motion would be with respect to item 4, to strike the proposal relating to section 1.004, subsection 1H, the language stating this section limiting the number and continuing through July 1st, 2017 shall be stricken, and inserting in its place the number of recreational retail marijuana licenses shall not exceed 14, parentheses, 14, end parentheses, in number. The limitation on the number of recreational retail marijuana licenses specifically shall apply to an RMD that was provisionally licensed not later than July 1, 2017. So that would be the motion on the amendment.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Anybody have any questions? Motion made and seconded to recommend favorably to the full council. Attorney Resnick, can you call the roll
This is on the amendment.
on the amendment?
Cruz,
Yes.
Monahan,
Yes.
McCastro,
Yes.
Rodrigues,
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Now I take a motion, entertain a motion to recommend favorably.
So
Second,
moved.
Yes, so moved. Motion made by Councilor Rodrigues, seconded by Councilor Nicastro to recommend favorably to the full city council as amended. Attorney Resnick, please call the roll.
Cruz,
Yes.
Monahan,
Yes.
McCastro,
yes.
Rodrigues,
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
That's 5 in the affirmative.
So moved. Thank you very much. I think we took a big step forward tonight. Thank you, councilors.
One further recommendation?
Yeah.
Just to table item number 2.
Motion to table number 4.
Second,
Second.
Is that the right one we want to table? Yes, we just changed 2.
Yes, so sorry. Table 2.
Motion made and seconded to table item number 4. Attorney Resnick, please call the roll.
Cruz,
Yes.
Monahan,
Yes.
McCastro,
yes.
Rodrigues,
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Number 4 is tabled. And Attorney Resnick, can you make sure you do make a note on that, that's now sponsored by myself and Councilor
Yeah.
Rodrigues?
Yep.
We're gonna get to item 3. Just before we do, I just want to let everybody know that I meant to announce at the beginning, at 7:20, we're gonna adjourn wherever we are because the mayor is doing his state of the city address tonight. And out of respect for that, I wanted us to finish. So Next one should only take a second. Item number 3, ordinance section 2-100 is hereby amended by striking out the word "he" wherever it appears and inserting the words "the council," and by striking out the words "except finance" after the words "meetings." This is just, I believe Councilor Farr will file this, but this is to have our legal counsel attend all finance meetings, which the council can do at any time anyways, but it specifically is mentioned not to attend the finance committee in the ordinance, in the verbiage that creates that job. And there are times, particularly during the budget, where we want our attorney there. So this is to, Councilor Attorney Resnick, anything you want to say on this?
Yeah, I have no problem going to the finance meetings. When Councilor Ian Airy was president, I went to every single one of them. I do regularly watch them now on YouTube. I just want the council to be clear as to what my role could be in that capacity, because it is going to be an additional cost to the city to have me attend 2 additional meetings and prepare for all of them. But I can't give legal advice on financial issues. That needs to come from your CFO. There are a lot of liabilities that the law department actually needs to weigh in on. But oftentimes you might have questions about procedure, simply same thing tonight. Is this the best way to frame my vote? Those types of things I'm happy to do. I did ask Judge Gilday as to why that was in there and what his memory of it was. And he basically said that that the attorneys were being put on the spot to provide financial advice. And as long as the council is comfortable with me not doing that, because that's not what my role is, I'm fine with it. And then the other reason why it's there is because your legislative council's responsibilities is in your ordinances, really focused on drafting legislation, which may not be a function of your finance committee. So that's up to you. I don't mind going to them. It's fine by me.
The way this is written, is this saying you must be at these meetings or can be at these meetings?
Must, shall. And so the other way that you could always just table this item if you wanted to, and I could just show up to them. I mean, I did it for Councilor Ian Airy's presidency. It's fine by me to appear.
Councilors, any questions?
It's up to you.
Any motions?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I just want to chime in just for a second here, but
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's important for us at least to fix the wordage so that if she does show up, she's not in violation of the ordinance. So because on the ordinance is saying specifically that she shouldn't show up to FinCom. So I think we can somehow finagle it so that it doesn't say must, but that she should be allowed to come to the meeting upon request, or whichever language we can come up with. I just the must be or must show up, but at the same time, if we don't have anything, then we would be violating the ordinance, because the ordinance says she should not be there. I think we got to kind of balance things out and maybe take must and kind of also eliminate the fact that it does say that she's not supposed to be at FinCom.
I can create a proposal to Councilor Farrell that would encompass that.
Yeah,
Well,
I agree.
I don't think it's a major change. It's just that to make it so that it makes sense, not forcing you to be at the meetings, but at the same time, allow you to be at the meeting, legally allow you to be at those meetings.
Yeah.
Right, and I don't know if anybody else wants to speak. I agree. I think we want to make it so because, I mean, we have lots of finance meetings. It might be 3 agenda items. We don't want to be, if there's no reason to be there to pay extra money it's not about the money, but to say must means we can't move forward at all. And actually, because we have no backup for that, there'd be no vacation, there'd be no, if we have a finance meeting, we don't have backup for that, you'd be actually in violation of it. So if nobody has any questions, I'd entertain a motion to postpone this and just write those.
That's fine. And I just wanted to say that A is not accurate. It says that the council will attend all meetings except finance, but you don't come to real estate. You don't come to,
No, Attorney Gilday, the real estate meetings weren't as prevalent as they are now. And so at the time, Attorney Gilday was not, now Judge Gilday was not attending them. So that when we started, I do public safety, ordinance, and I do the general city council meetings, but I've always gone to real estate and finance as long as I've been invited.
okay.
I can take it as a note to come to finance. I did go to the last one.
And you don't come to accounts either.
I do not. I have gone to accounts in the past
Okay. As needed.
as needed.
So
Well,
I think,
Truthfully, like if I'm just like, I don't want you guys to overpay for something, I think as needed works. I definitely see why there was a need for this based off of last year's climate in the finance committee. And I am happy to listen in. And if eventually that need's no longer there, someone can tell me that.
So I entertain a motion to postpone so we can fix this.
yes.
Mr. Chair-
So moved.
Mr. Chairman, so why don't we just change the word to say as needed and basically leave it as such? So
Well, I think we've got to look at,
Yeah,
can we do that?
let's give some time to work on it.
But just to look at it, because I think there's some stuff that's not some earlier verbiage, because we probably want to put real estate in there too.
Yeah.
As needed. So.
Yeah. I think that makes the most sense. So I can put that in and I can come back at the next ordinance meeting.
You know, it's not an emergency because she's going to be able to come to finance in the meantime, but there's a motion made. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to postpone until the next ordinance meeting. Attorney Resnick, please call the roll.
Cruz,
Yes.
Monahan,
Yes.
Castro,
Yes,
Rodrigues,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
5 in the affirmative.
It is postponed until the next meeting. Item number 5, ordinance. An ordinance amending Part 2 of the revised ordinance, Article 2, City Council, Division 3, Rules or Order and Procedure. Be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Brockton, Section 2-91 shall be amended by adding the following new section. F, Committee on Equity, Diversity and Inclusion to consist of 5 councilors to consider matters pertaining to equity, diversity, and inclusion in the city of Brockton and in general to support city departments that deal with such issues. Councilor Nicastro.
thank you. I have a statement. Okay. Last year, ugly truths about America were revealed as we all witnessed the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic ravaging our nation, but especially its Black and Brown populations, and a series of killings of Black Americans by law enforcement in other parts of the country. Last July, the Brockton School Committee voted unanimously to create an Equity, Diversion, and Inclusion Subcommittee to respond to a call to action. They created this subcommittee to reflect their long-term commitment to staying on top of equity, diversion, and inclusion issues arising in Brockton Public Schools policy and curriculum areas. The school department is now looking for an executive director of equity, diversity, and inclusion as well. I suspected the City Council needed to create a similar subcommittee. As you know, the Brockton City Council has a history of creating subcommittees from time to time to address the needs of city government. For example, in 1968, there were 13 subcommittees, including claims, public relations, and off-street parking. So I began researching what other Massachusetts communities had done. The Cambridge City Council has a Civic Unity Subcommittee. It was created about 25 years ago, and it has addressed such topics as culturally competitive workforce and discrimination issues with city workforce. The town of North Andover has an advisory commission for diversity, equity, and inclusion that advises its Board of Selectmen and town manager. The City of Boston has a Department of Resilience and Racial Equity that reports to its mayor. Somerville, Lawrence, Framingham, Chelsea, and Springfield, to name a few, all have versions of this department in their executive branches. Brockton is currently looking for a diversity and inclusion major. I thought for sure that other councilors who have voiced these issues inside and outside of council chambers would would make the proposal to create such a subcommittee. But as time passed without action, I decided to do it myself. I drafted the ordinance before you tonight to simply describe its purpose: to consider matters pertaining to equity, diversity, and inclusion in the city of Brockton, and in general, to support city departments that deal with such issues. By approving inclusion of this ordinance among our standing committees, I hope it sends the message to all that the Brockton City Council cares about equity, diversity, and inclusion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilors, any comments?
Mr. Chairman, if I can.
Councilor Rodrigues?
Well, one of the reasons why I, as one of the diverse members of the city council, had never, submitted an ordinance to this body is because of previous experience. In any time we submit an ordinance change that actually asks for or demands equality within the council, within the city, it's always been turned down. So I felt that it was somewhat important that perhaps somebody who's not from the racial group that I belong to or I am a member of should be the person that actually submits something like that, because perhaps it has a better luck in surviving. Because to be honest with you, Councilor Nicastro, I've submitted quite a few things in the past to this body that actually asks for specifically a balance in power within the city, and it hasn't gone anywhere. It has failed and failed drastically to an embarrassment in some instances where other communities have done exact the same things that I was proposing to do, but it has not gone anywhere. So the fear that I have is that, yes, we're proposing a committee to look beautiful. Is this just window dressing, or will it actually have some teeth and have the power to be able to do anything in the city? Because if it's just dressing, not going to support it. Because you know what, frankly, I'm tired of window dressing. So if it's going to have some serious authority where you can actually go in front of this body to file a complaint, to look into some issues that are causing the brown and black communities to have the feelings that they have about the city, I'll support it. But if it's just for window dressing purposes so that we can say, yeah, we have one of these, that has been done in the past, including in the school department. I mean, the school department can say whatever they want to do. We've had these issues going back to the days when I was still in the schools complaining about these issues. So if it's just window dressing, leave it as is, because some of us want real changes to go forward. But as long as it has some power behind it, I will support it. If it doesn't, then we'll just leave it as is.
Mr. Chair, may I respond?
You may.
Thank you. I have no intention of window dressing. And I will say, last year was just an amazing year with all that happened and with our council being on virtual meetings. And there's an awful lot that I think all of us wanted to do or hoped to do that got absolutely sidetracked because of virtual meetings, because of us being contained in our homes, and because some of us got sick and so on and so forth. And so I just came forward to do this so that we'd have something out there, because I think it's really important. And recent virtual meetings that I've attended, seminars that I've attended, and talks within the city, I think we need to do this. I think this is important for us to go on record with, sincerely and truly. And that's the reason for this.
Mr. Chairman, through you, Councilor Nicastro, I'm not saying that it doesn't make sense or it's not necessary. What I'm saying is what happened last year in this country happens every day. The only difference that it was caught on video.
Right.
And that's what happened.
Right.
George Floyd's happen in America every single day.
Right.
So it's nothing new. We're used to it. We people of color are used to this. So that's the only difference. But what I'm saying is the fact that if we're going to put together a committee, let's do it so that it actually has some teeth behind it, and some respectability, and some ability to make some changes where changes need to be made. If it's not going to have all of that, then it's kind of a waste of our time to go through this process. That's what I'm saying. If we're going to put it together and it has some validity, some respectability, some power behind it, I'm all for it. I'm all for it. And it's, guess what? It's about time we've done something like this in the city, but it has to have some teeth. I mean, we have a diversity committee, a commission in the city. You know where some of us refer to it as? The diversion committee or commission, the diversion, to divert from things. You know, so I don't want to do the same thing with this particular committee if it's just a committee in the books only, if it's not going to be able to do the things that it needs to do to better the lives of Brocktonians in this community. So if it has that ability, I'm all for it. But if it's something that's just going to be, you know, so that it looks good on the outside, then I'm not interested in doing it.
I agree with you. What does everyone else think?
Councilor,
I
any
think go
comments?
for it and see what happens.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got Moises, let him be involved with it, and you can tell us what's going to be able to be effective and what's not going to be too effective. I mean, it's worth a shot because we do need it, and I'll vote for it, and I'm glad you put it forward.
Mr. Chairman,
Councilor Thompson.
thank you. I agree with all the sentiments put forward. I guess only time will tell how effective it is. We're going to need some strong leadership on this committee so that it can be effective. So I would support the creation of this committee, and if the president is willing, I would also look to be appointed to it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I think it's a good idea to start, but I understand Councilor Rodrigues' frustration. My worry is that the public is going to think there's power that the city council does not have. And I worry about that, but to not at least try to move forward to see if we can do something with this would be a bad move by the city council. So I certainly support it, but I understand the frustration of it being just, there are things that the city council does not have the power to do, to create. And so we'll need to see where we can take this from here, but I'm certainly willing to support it. I think we lost Councilor Rodrigues.
Oh, I hope he comes back.
Before we take a vote on this, let's give him about 2 minutes, because I certainly don't want to not have
No.
Councilor Rodrigues be part of the vote. But we're also running out of time. Well, I think,
He's coming.
actually,
I just let him in.
oh, thank you.
I'm back. I don't know what happened.
Yeah,
Was
we
it-
lost you for a minute. So I don't know if you were able to hear what I was saying. I understand your frustrations, and I hope that this can be something that has some real effect, but we won't know until we start it. So I would entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second,
Motion made and seconded to recommend favorably back to the full city council.
Thank you.
All those in favor, excuse me, Attorney Resnick, call the roll, please.
Cruz,
Yes.
Monahan,
yes.
McCastro,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
The ordinance is recommended to full city council.
Thank you.
Item number, let me ask Attorney Bridges, we're running out of time. Which one do you want? Which one's more important? The zoning ordinance or the city solicitor?
They're both equally important, but taking them in order is totally fine.
Okay. Item number 6, an ordinance amending Article 3, Section 2-186 of the revised city ordinances of the city of Brockton. Be it ordained by the city council of the city of Brockton as follows. Section 2-186 of Chapter 2 is hereby amended. Section 2-186, the mayor may appoint 6 full-time assistant city solicitors without confirmation by the city council. the city solicitor may designate one full-time assistant city solicitor as a senior assistant city solicitor, or two full-time assistant solicitors as, one full-time assistant as
Code
code
enforcement.
enforcement city solicitor, and one full-time assistant city solicitor as a civil rights city solicitor. That would be added. Attorney Bridges, what's the current makeup?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So what the ordinance would make a change to is currently the office composition is the solicitor, 3 full-time assistants, and 2 part-time assistants. So the request would be to eliminate part-time jobs, and the remainder of the ordinance relative to the assignment of a senior assistant, a code enforcement, or civil rights lawyer, that already exists. The
Right.
actual change is just the number of lawyers in the office. So it would be an increase of 1 person and modifying 2 part-time roles to full-time roles.
So it's essentially an
And-
increase of 2 people. If you have 2 part-time, those
Yes,
become.
yes. The full-time equivalent would be two folks. And I think this ordinance is in line with the desires of the council as well as expressions of the administration about modifying the law office to, the law department to a modernized law office. And that's the direction, we're going, and recommendation favorably of this ordinance would support that endeavor.
Councilors, questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Councilor Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Would this be the proper forum for a cost discussion of adding 1 full-time?
Absolutely.
Okay. So do we have any idea of what the increased cost would be if this ordinance moved forward?
So the step 1 for a full-time assistant city solicitor is $80,000 and change, not 81,000 and change, less than 81, but more than 80. So if I were to get,
yeah.
so what I can tell you is that my budget as is for the remainder, what's remaining in FY21 supports hiring these folks without asking the council for more money.
Okay. So your intent would be to hire these in fiscal year 2021.
So I have 1 part-time person in my office right now that ideally would most likely be promoted to a full-time individual. So then I'd be looking to hire 2 more full-time assistant city solicitors.
And that would be this fiscal year, correct?
It would be. And just for comparison, some municipalities that are equal to Brockton, I guess, nobody's Brockton, I guess, in the city of Champions. And I know Councilor Cruz has to wrap this meeting up, so I'll keep it short. But Springfield has a city solicitor and 12 full-time assistants. So I'm asking for a body and a half more. And then there's still double what we have for a very comparable city.
Okay.
Councilor Thompson, you want mute?
Sorry about that. Would there also be a contemplation to reduce your outside counsel budget if you have an increase in bodies inside the law department?
So I would suggest not at this point. I'm happy to talk further about, where the monies from outside counsel cases go. But we use really specialized people, and I pride myself on getting great rates from those folks. But for example, the equity and education lawsuit, there's a $50,000 line item funded in my budget, and the state has committed to funding the requirements of the Opportunity Act. So that money is no longer necessary. Also, there's a 40U line item in my budget that's $100,000 that I think could be reduced. And both of those items together equal the $80,000 that I'm asking for. Or
So
equal the, 80,000 times 2 that I'm asking for, basically.
Okay, so there would be some moving around of the budget to support the additional attorneys?
Councilor Cruz, Councilor Thompson, the budget submission is done in consultation with the mayor and the CFO, and then up to you all to approve. Those two line items do exist that I don't think have been utilized for the past year. So I could see that money being used to support the hires if you all so desired in your approval.
Understood. Also, just lastly, the senior assistant city solicitor, is there any premium salary attached to that designation, or?
There is.
Okay. And who chooses the senior assistant city solicitor?
The solicitor.
Okay. All right. No more questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Actually, I have a couple. So Springfield's not really a good measurement. Springfield's a city of about 250,000 people, so it's a little different than us. Do you know what your full-time personnel for the full year, not just the rest of this year? So
approximately 750.
Approximately 750. And what would it go to if we pass this for the year?
Approximately 900.
Approximately 900.
But like I said, I've worked hard on the math, and I have enough money in my budget for the remainder of this fiscal year without asking for more money to support this request.
No, I understand that, but I like to look at what the full year is, because we'll be at the budget for next year in no time. So I'm just trying to get a handle on.
And Mr. Chairman, that's just why I offered the comments on the 40U line item and the equity and education line item.
Yeah.
Because I'm really, I guess simply, I'm not asking for more money. I'm just asking you to move it around.
Well, right this year, we're not asking for more money, but it will be, that line item in your budget will go up considerably, and without dropping outside legal fees that you can see at this point, and I understand that. So you would have, right now you have 6 people, 2 of them including yourself.
Right now, I have 3 full-time assistants and 1 part-time assistant.
And 1 part-time, but the ordinance is 2, but you just have 1.
Correct.
Okay.
I'm finding that part-time staff makes it difficult, especially in light of remote governance.
Let me ask you a question. I'm not really sure what I feel about this anyways. Is it in our ordinance that the full-time cannot do any outside law work?
So we are special municipal employees, if I am correct, which I don't think the solicitor is a special, but I think the assistants are specials, so they could have outside employment. I'd have to double check, but I believe that's the scenario.
So they can practice outside even while they're full-time city solicitors?
If they're special, if they have the special municipal designation, which I'd have to confirm that.
Okay.
No one in my office currently, I don't think, moonlights or has any outside employment.
Okay. Any other councilors have any questions?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to chime in for a second if I can through the phone here. Megan, I don't want anybody to ever tell you that you're not special, because you are special. So do not believe that one iota. And this is something, Mr. Chairman, that I strongly support, because we ran into this issue in the past with the fact that we are, although she's saying that we're not going to be using any of the outside budget to handle any of these things, in reality, we would be using some of that, because some things that are done externally might be able to be done internally. So this is something that I support, and I believe it's time for us to run a law department that resembles a professional law office. So if nobody else is going to chime in, I'd like to make a motion to recommend this favorably to the council.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any questions on the motion? Councilor Attorney Resnick, can you call the roll, please?
Bruce, Monahan,
Yes.
DeCastro,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Thompson.
Thompson?
Jeff,
Sorry,
you're muted.
Sorry, no.
No?
The motion carries 4-1.
Motion
Thank
to
you.
recommend the ordinance to the full city council, 4-1. Number 7, I'm gonna skip the reading. Somebody make a motion to postpone.
Motion to postpone to the next meeting.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, aye,
Just so
aye.
you know, this was something that Council Farwell, back when we couldn't get a full-time city solicitor, Council Farwell filed us to do with residency on and some of the language around the city solicitor itself, and we can look at it another time. It's not time sensitive. We're running a little bit late, but let's finish up. Number 8 is an ordinance amending Appendix C zoning, Article 7, Board of Appeals, Section 27-50 of the zoning ordinances of the city of Brockton to increase the fee associated with buildable lot determinations from $50 to $250. Attorney Bridges, if you want to give a quick, this one, councilors, is pretty much a no-brainer, but if Attorney Bridges can give us a quick rundown on what this is.
Mr. Chairman, through you, I don't want to be responsible for anyone missing the state of the city. And essentially, this is the city provides buildable lot determinations because we have a lot of pre-existing non-conforming lots that were created prior to our zoning ordinances being enacted. Additionally, our definition of a pre-existing non-conforming lot is more expansive than that in MGL Chapter 40A. So, a very reasonable interpretation of the zoning law requires that our building commissioner provide these determinations when requested, but they're based on a legal analysis of the history of the law and oftentimes require very extensive research and title exams. So the funds, the request is to increase it from $50 to $250. That was the current original fee, $50, and the $250 would support a professional title exam when necessary and the work that's done to do the research on these requests.
Thank you. And council, is this because it is a zoning issue? If we do recommend this favorably, there will be a public hearing at a city council meeting in early February. It needed to be posted for 10 days, so we can't move it completely forward until we have that. Any questions on this?
Nope.
It's basically, it's just, we've got a lot of builders who come in and they ask for these because it's so cheap. They need to have some skin in the game.
Right.
I'd entertain a motion.
Motion to recommend favor.
Second.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to recommend favorably to the full city council. Councilor Resnick, Attorney Resnick, can you call a roll, please? Oh, you're Councilor too, with an S.
Cruz,
Yes.
Monahan,
Yes.
McCastro,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
That's 5 in the affirmative.
This is recommended favorably to the full city council. I thank everybody. We did a great job, 7:30. If I know Mayor Sullivan, he's running 2 minutes late anyway, so we're gonna adjourn.
He's actually speaking, but he's using our podium, so we're gonna have to charge him for it.
Absolutely.
Motion
All right,
to.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Yep.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody.